Okay, so the recording is on. I'm going to go on the Miro board. I'll share the link with you.
Abhishek, the link to the Slack post is in the huddle chat. Yeah, thanks. I can see it now. Thank you so much.
Super. I'm gonna share my screen so that we can jump into the training, if that's okay. Can you see what I see? Can you also see yourself?
Yes.
I'll make it a little bit smaller. Okay, good. So, welcome to the second session of the Volunteer CoLab Welcomers training. Unfortunately, the recording of the first session didn't work. So what I'll do today is I'll start with a recap so that also to bring Joe up to speed with where we are. If that's okay. If that's not okay, then you can unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, I see thumbs up. Good. Good. We have a set of sessions. The first session is about who is here, and in the first session we had myself, Abhishek, Fred, and Mikulu. So please go ahead, Joe, and add yourself there on the sticky note. You can use the Miro link, which is in the huddle chat. And basically, this outlines why you are taking this training and who you are. And obviously, the motivation helps us as volunteers to orient around what is our interest here, what's bringing us to the table, and then it will help me also during the training to try and find your calling, your interest, to try and match that up with the tasks that we have ongoing. Obviously, I'm assuming that you're all here because you are wanting to volunteer as part of the Welcome Gardening onboarding team. Good. I see Joe is filling that in. Perfect. Okay, and then we moved on to talking about what does the Welcome Gardening Circle do. We obviously help people to come in from the external environment, the permaculture movement, into the internal environment, which is the CoLab Slack workspace. The task of the welcomer, what is the task of the welcomer, and how does it affect the CoLab community? You can have a look, just follow me through there with the share. And what we do is established within our mission and aims of the circle. I have copied in the mission into the next slide, and you can see that basically the Welcome Gardening team takes care of the onboarding process for the CoLab. We host monthly onboarding calls and have yearly gatherings and curate the journey into the CoLab. So the welcoming part is only a small part of everything that we do. We are also the first people that new members come into contact with. So it's very important that we make a good impression on new members so that they stick around and become engaged. The team can be found in the Welcome Gardening channel. This is where we are most active, and also this is where our user group is found, so that you can add the user group and add yourself as a welcomer once you have completed the training. In summary, we greet new members, we link new members to the rest of the CoLab. So this is the bridge between coming in from the outside into the inside, like I said. We help around the CoLab to help people find information they want. If they're looking for a specific resource, if they're wanting to connect to specific people who are looking for, I don't know, specific projects and resources. And also we are the link to the foundation documentation, for example, the history of the CoLab, the user guide, and all of this. I'm just gonna quickly go to the next part, unless you have a question. And then we talked about what is the role of the volunteer welcomer, and this is what people what people have put in. So, Joe, you weren't here the last time, so feel free to add any more post-its here. And the volunteer welcomers specifically are going to contribute to hosting the onboarding calls. I have a lot of reminders coming up on my screen. So we've got introducing members to the space of the CoLab, directing resources driven specific information, reminders about events or meetings relevant to CoLab members, specifically onboarding calls, and making sure the invites to the onboarding sessions are shared in the welcome guarding channel. That's a very good one. Be the first line of connection for people coming in. Good. Okay, quickly zapping through the next one. How does this affect the CoLab community? A lot. Remember, the first impression is very important, and it's only the one-time opportunity. So if they have a very good first impression, that will stick with them, and they will always go back to that. If they have a first bad impression, maybe they don't stick around as well. A well done onboarding can make a community more resilient because information is spread out rather than staying at single points of contact. We want to strengthen the capacity building of the community members by engaging and interacting with them, and also that they feel more permission to engage and join activities such as this one, for example, to become a CoLab welcomer. We also want to diversify as much as possible the membership. So, of course, if we are welcoming to people who are coming from all kinds of cultures and backgrounds, then we will have a richer space. And then I see Joe was also writing onboarding helps move the CoLab into a collaborative empathic community. Obviously, there is a strong sense of collaboration because collaboration is in our name and should be the foundation of all our interactions. So the onboarding welcoming function serves specifically for that, also to cement that into the way that people are engaging with the CoLab, that it is all about communication, it's all about community and collaboration. Building confidence is also a big part of it. So if the people are leaving the onboarding call feeling empowered and confident in the way that they are engaging, then they're more likely to do that and to do that quicker. So the gap between having the onboarding and becoming engaged can be significantly reduced by giving people more confidence in the way that they can interact with the space. Okay, let's have a look. Does I cover that? Anything to add here before I move on? It's an important foundational point that we understand that how it affects the CoLab is significant. So obviously showing up on time, being nice and courteous to the people, and so on. These are all things that will affect how people are coming into our community.
I'm trying to make space as you are trying to make space as well, maybe.
It's okay, we can move things around. It's not
Yeah,
a problem.
all good. Good, good.
Okay. How are we doing so far? I know I've launched into it like full speed ahead. Any questions up to now? Abhishek, how are you holding up? Okay, super. All right, quick move on. Top qualities of a welcome volunteer. We did cover some technical skills and some soft skills. So, to be open and welcoming always, to be open to accepting new members with facilitation that's correct. So, we don't give incorrect information to people. That's very important. Be able to manage new members' expectations. For example, we are not a funder. We are all about collaboration and community engagement. that we should know where the important documents are, especially the code of conduct, for example, and that we should have the Slack skills to be able to model the behavior for other people. Also, Miro skills are important because the onboarding calls are managed from Miro. I'm going to close this because it keeps interrupting me. And if you don't know if you don't know the information, it's okay to say I don't know. But you should know absolutely where to find that information out or who to ask. So in this case, more experienced members of the Welcome Gardening Circle will be able to help you, as well as other CoLab members who have been here a long time. But you have to know. Don't leave it like this. Don't say I don't know and leave it like this. You say I don't know and I will find out for you, and that you follow through with that. So that's also part of building that first impression, right? Okay, and then resourceful or ask questions when needed and know where to go to ask. Yeah. And also, this was an interesting that one that Mikulo has put in to be willing to learn and unlearn. I think this is interesting, especially for behaviors we may be used to elsewhere that are not appropriate here, or that we want to upskill in some remote working practices. Maybe we have not experienced that before. That's important. And also how to be with other people online. This is a kind of an interesting skill because relating to people online is not the same as being in the same room as other people. There's um, much less ability to read body language. For example, if I don't ask you is everything okay, then I'm not gonna know if your camera is switched off, for example. I'm just bringing an example. Obviously, people who are coming to the CoLab don't always have the data capacity to have the camera switched on all the time, for example. And even through the camera, you couldn't tell if I have a headache or if I'm slouching over because I'm in pain or if my children on the background are harassing me or if the dog is barking. So there could be a number of things that are not visible to the facilitator or the welcomer in this case. And so being able to check in every now and then with the people that are in the room, how's everything going, is an important skill. These are things that you pick up with experience, but also that you can pick up from other people by attending other events. So, for example, CoLab training events are specifically modeled for this, and you can see how the facilitators are behaving, how they're holding the room. You can come and learn, obviously, about the topic that's being taught, but also about the facilitation skills. At the end of this training session, I'm going to send you some resources also, how to facilitate online and in person, and you can refer back to some of these soft skills there. If you have any questions, obviously you can feel free to ask at any point. And yeah, Abhishek.
Yeah, these points, the slide that we are seeing right now, the qualities of the volunteer welcomer. This point that was mentioned about the code of conduct of the CoLab.
Yes.
The code of conduct. Where is the resource that we can find to read the code of conduct? Is it on Perma Earth?
Yes, so today we will talk about where to find all these documents and stuff like that's the next step. So yes, I will show you where all the documentation is, how to find the correct answers, and also where all these documents are, because you'll need to read them and know what they say roughly, not by heart, obviously, no one expects that, but you'll need to understand a little bit what that involves. So don't worry about that. I'm going to share all of that information. The code of conduct is particularly interesting because it's how we are showing up in the space and relating with other people, whereas other content is more technical or more process policy based rather than the way of being. Okay. And the other point that was interesting, made by also by Mikolo, who isn't here today, was humanity, humility, and kindness. I think it's very important to stay into that mindset when, especially when we're holding onboarding calls. If you're finding that you have people in the room who have missed a lot of the call because there is not enough data or the Wi-Fi is cutting out too much, then it is okay to ask people to come again to the next one. So I noticed that your internet was cutting out a lot. You've missed a great part of our session today. I would like to please invite you to the next one so that you can catch up again with all the information you need. We find that from experience, and I've onboarded a lot of people in this last year since I've been doing the welcoming, is the people who miss the onboarding or are not able to fully participate in it find it very difficult then to fit into the CoLab later on and to engage appropriately. So really making sure that they are getting the onboarding properly is important. Okay, I think this is where we stopped last time. So that's the end of our recap. And I'm gonna launch into today's content. We see I haven't done a whole load of preparation because it's more of a discussion, and I'll show you where things are and then I'll populate those later. Okay, so today is how well do you know the CoLab? Obviously, you will know the CoLab more well if you are more engaged. But there are ways to find the information, and the first place to go is the website. The website is updated almost constantly, but some parts of it may also be not exactly up to date. And I'll explain today what's up to date right now and what isn't, but I'll also tell you how how to find out and check that the information is correct. So on our website is first of all perma.earth. On the first page, you're going to find the description of it. I'm going to zoom in a bit. And it also tells you what the CoLab is. It's one definition. You'll also find that we have a few definitions in different documents, but overall, the vision is the same. So PermaEarth is our website. The full name of the CoLab is International Permaculture Collaboration Laboratory. You should learn this name. We're also known as the CoLab and the Permaculture CoLab. So just to confuse you, we have multiple names, but the official name is International Permaculture Collaboration Laboratory. We focus on prototyping ways of collaborating together, but also working on tangible results, like working with tools. We work online. It says here, and in person. There have been very little in-person work, I can tell you that, for nothing. And most of our activity actually happens in the CoLab Slack. We work in line with permaculture values, and we try to document as much as possible the experiments we have. So if there's some project, there's always documentation to go with that project, whatever that is, whether that being a training session, whether that is a new software, whether that is this training, for example. Everything is documented as much as possible. And events, training, services, and resources are offered on this website for the permaculture movement, not only on the website, but also sometimes through other platforms, right? You can find information about the project, circles, working groups, and initiatives, and so on the website and also within the CoLab Slack, but most of the documentation that's open for the public is definitely on the website. So again, you'll find me, I'm repeating myself a ton. The website is where you find most of the information. And on the right-hand side here, you'll find the flower, which has been updated. And these are the current circles that are either in the works, as in they're incubating, or they are already incubated and working. And I'm going to start with the circles that have been around the longest. And that's from this group, that's the digital circle and the welcoming circle. And then came the funding circle, the general circle, the permaculture in Africa, and the last one is the comms engagement, which is in the incubation. So here's now one question for you. What does the digital circle do? I'm testing your knowledge a little bit.
I can. This is Joe. I can speak to it.
Yes.
Digital Circle helps us keep our digital environment that we operate in a remote way healthy and functional. It offers our services like maintaining our web presence, so on and so forth. There are services that we can tap into. There are a bunch of things in the back end that need to happen technologically for us to maintain our online presence. And I look up to Digital Circle to provide those services for us.
Yes, that sounds about right. So the important thing to remember about the digital circle, it's in the technological domain. So the domain that they work in is software and online tech tools. That they are both a circle of people working together, and they talk technology and so on. But they're also a micro enterprise, and the micro enterprise part provides services to the CoLab in exchange for payment. So the CoLab pays the digital circle to provide hosting, the website, the Nextcloud, the Miro seats that we're using. All of these are paid services that the digital circle services provides to the CoLab. It also provides services to other communities that are permaculture aligned. And now I have a question from Abhishek.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Just in this digital circle, like you were mentioning, like what does the digital circle do? Can you hear me?
The digital circle is a group of people that works together around the technological domain. Sometimes that is research, sometimes that's part of it is providing services, and basically their interests are around open source technology.
And ethical
Yeah,
considerations.
Just sorry.
That's
Can I?
okay.
Yeah, it says actually on the website. It says when I was reading, it says that it's actually related to open source apps.
Yes.
Open source apps and plugins. What is the kind of open source apps? Can you give me example? Is Miro an example of this open source app?
Miro is not open source, but Nextcloud is open source. The Lean Time is open source. And there are other apps that are open source. So if you're interested in this topic specifically, the best thing to do is to talk to the Digital Circle in their channel. And that's the kind of information we would give to people who ask in the onboarding, right? So you don't need to know exactly which 30 apps they provide. Or they do WordPress, they do e-learning. We did the no-code app last year. So uh, there's a lot of services that they can provide, and I think if I'm not mistaken, on the website there's also screenshots of what apps they can provide there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Super. Okay. So what to remember: the domain, the circle part. The circle part is the working group, what they're working around, and they are interested in open source technology and working together about that. And the services part, so the business part of that circle. For the CoLab, they do a lot, like I said, the hosting and all this research and stuff, and that it's a paid for service to the CoLab. So that's the digital circle. And now I can move on to the Welcome Gardening Circle, which historically was called the Welcome Circle. And the Welcome Gardening Circle is a circle. It is not a micro enterprise, so we don't offer any paid services. It's a volunteer group that can apply for funding within the CoLab. So if there's funding application going, which is usually a group one, like the Next Steps project, then they would apply for funding to carry out the activities that were previously volunteer-led. We're looking to stepping into the volunteer-led again next year if funding is not found for it, and this is why we're preparing for that period. The Welcome Gardening is focused on welcoming people into the CoLab and also accompanying people while they're here, which is the kind of gardening part to have a little bit more community feeling around that. And in this regard, we have at least 2 meetings per year to bring people together and talk about what's going on. Anything to add here? Maybe Joe, you want to add something about?
I think there are some pieces what makes Welcome Gardening Circle, right? One is it's the bridge between the external world of permaculture to the CoLab. So it's like your concierge service, or however you want to see it. The other one is also curating this space within the CoLab to be productive, to be aligned, to be functional, to be resourceful. So we get into all of that, which includes maintaining and governing the platform that we all use for communication. It also includes how might we know who's in the ecosystem and how can we leverage the skills and the strengths of the ecosystem so people can effectively participate and collaborate within the CoLab. So I would say those are essentially big whys of the Welcome Gardening Circle. Questions, Abhishek? I am on the Welcome Gardening Circle, so I don't have questions for me. Abhishek, do you have any questions for me?
No, it's fine with me. I just like listen to you and take some notes actually.
No worries.
Okay, now we can move on to the funding circle. The funding circle has been around quite a few years now. I was going to say it's fairly new, but no, it's actually some years have passed since I've said that. The funding circle provides paid services. So it's a micro enterprise almost first and foremost. It was set up in that way. And it provides paid services such as grant writing, grant matching, and grant management. And it also provides, and that's free of charge and accessible also externally, the funding opportunities database. This is a database that has been so far maintained through a grant. So we have been paid to populate the database. It's the largest database of its kind, and it lists and focuses on listing funding opportunities through grants, mostly relevant to permaculture aligned projects. And you can filter by sector and so on. Right now, as we're speaking, there is a restructuring going on, and we are focusing first on incubating or re-incubating the circle part. So the services part at the moment stays the same. And the circle part, so the voluntary part, the research part, that's we're discussing that. What's happening with it, it will emerge. So it's in a kind of re-emergent state. The services part is more of a professional freelance part, the same as the digital circle, basically, where professionals who are qualified in this domain, finding and managing funding, get together to provide the service. And the circle part is open to anyone who is interested in this topic to work together to provide these resources for the permaculture movement, and specifically within the CoLab, since this is where we're at. On the funding circle page, you'll find information about this, both about the circle itself and about the services. Yes, Abhishek.
Yeah, I just had something in mind actually when she was mentioning, Jyotsna was mentioning earlier about this role of the welcoming gardening circle. Just like I had a thought in mind, if somebody is not part of the permaculture CoLab and they join like externally, will they automatically be led to the welcome gardening circle, or will they have access to other channels on the permaculture CoLab, like the Slack space?
That's a good question. So, the membership is not open to people who are not on the Slack CoLab workspace. So it's tied together.
I think we have to talk about the common channels we share with other members, other allied networks like GRC. We share the channel. So membership is not open until. Okay, sorry.
I think that complicates things a bit more. Let's finish the let's finish the circle, And I'll come back to your question, Abhishek. But fundamentally, a CoLab member is someone with an active CoLab Slack workspace account and has attended an onboarding call. Those are the two conditions. We have some channels that are shared with other Slack workspaces, but I'll talk about them later because it's an unnecessary complication right now. Okay, so how are we doing with that? I see thumbs up. Good. Okay, then the next circle I want to talk about is permaculture in Africa. This is a very new circle, was incubated last year during last year's Emergent Festival. We have a group of people who are based on the African continent, and they are at the moment working on what does it mean to be a circle, a permaculture in Africa circle. Um, they are outlining their domain. So what will they be working on is basically making the CoLab as accessible as possible to people who are based on the African continent. What does it mean? For example, how accessible are we to people who are coming in with lower bandwidth, different cultural practices, different languages, and all of this? So there's a lot of talk around this right now. It's still in a very much in formation mode, but it's a nice home to have. They have a permaculture in Africa channel, and so this is a nice place to send people, especially who are joining us from the African continent, to say permaculture in Africa is a good place or channel for you to start as a new member, to go there and meet other people who have had the same experience as you, who understand the challenges of coming in from Africa, and how to navigate the CoLab in a better way. And I must say, we have very able volunteers there who are really invested into making the CoLab as accessible as possible to the African community. And they do not have a services part, so they do not offer paid services, just like the welcome gardening. Okay, so that's that. Okay, talk about this later. Fine. Abhishek, yes.
Yeah, just curious again, like how is the birth of this permaculture in Africa circle, or like somebody start like mentoring or this incubation, like how did it start initially, and why is it like just like from this like one continent or one part of the country, or somebody like get together? I'm just curious to ask actually.
Thank you. That's a very good
Yeah, how did it
question.
work about?
Yes, it's a really good question. I think it also speaks to, later on, we will get into a little bit more technical as to how to start a new circle and how to end one and all this. But it's very good. First of all, every CoLab member has in their own power to start a new circle if they find other people to start it with. So it started with someone's idea. It was proposed to other people wanted to join in and like the idea, and they work together to figure out basically how the circle will work, who's in it, is it a closed or an open circle, and so on. And in this case, there was a need identified by members of the Permaculture in Africa Circle, because a lot of membership, about 10% of new CoLab members, were coming from the African continent, and that they were encountering some difficulties into navigating the CoLab. So the idea came about: okay, let's get the room to let's fill the room with people who have gone through the onboarding themselves, and they can have a go at improving this, and especially curating some of the content and the process for African people to join the CoLab and become more engaged here. Um, it's not the same work that the welcome gardening does. It's a complementary additional work to what the welcome gardening does. And that's interesting. And we'll see how the permaculture in Africa work will influence the onboarding process as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I sort of like, I mean, I'm just thinking to think now, like when they started and in the initial mentors, they're mostly out of like maybe the European subcontinent, or so. Before this, we should have like more of. There should have been like a permaculture in Europe circle. I mean, just like curious. Please don't mind me. I mean, I understand what you were saying like earlier, and there are a lot of majority of people who joined like the onboarding or part of the CoLab, like a lot of members from the like this part of the continent or this part of the place, and they were facing difficulties and all these things, like you said. But do they take the decision collectively and address like this to you as mentors, and that is when this circle originates? Is it?
No, not quite like this. So if someone was inspired to start a permaculture in Europe circle, that would be totally okay. They would make a proposal to the community in the Everybody channel, for example, and say, I would like to form, or permaculture in India, or permaculture in the US. I would like to form a circle that talks or addresses some of the needs of this continent, or whatever, this bioregion, or call it what you like, or the subset of people who are interested in this. It could also be about permaculturists that want to use bicycle only for transport. It could be about anything. The way that the decisions are made in the CoLab are collectively. So someone has to make a proposal, and then other people have opinions on it or opinionate on it, have a consent round. I'll talk a little bit more about the governance also later on, so I don't want to get stuck too long here. But to summarize, the decisions are made by the people who are affected by it. And yes, thank you, Joe, for referencing the governance. We'll come back to it in a subsequent training session, because that's a whole session in itself, and it's important to understand how the governance work. And I deliberately started from the circles, because the circles are the most formal structures we have in the CoLab. Like, circles have specific vision, mission, and aims. They have specific membership, so you can ask any circle who are the members of the circle, and they should be able to tell you. And they also, you can ask, what is your mission, vision, and aims, and they should be able to answer that. If they're not able to, it's because they're either incubating or reevaluating what they're doing, which is completely fine and normal, because we're an ever-changing and ever in evolution space. If there isn't a circle in existence, it's because it hasn't been proposed and people haven't gathered around it. Doesn't mean it cannot exist in the future. And right now we have a 6-petal flower. Before it was 4 petals, and sometimes it's 20, and sometimes it's 3. So things change, and this is why this isn't something fixed in stone. Like, this is a living, breathing community, and sometimes we are having more circles, and sometimes we have less circles. Okay, I think we've covered the permaculture in Africa in more detail than I expected. Joe?
I was gonna add this for future reference too, Amy. I think there is an organic emergence from a formation of a working group, then evolving into a circle that we have seen with permaculture in Africa, at least, where they say that we want to be more than a project, we want to be more than a goal, we want to create more opportunities for others, and we want to grow this. And there has to be that intention of growth, and not limiting yourself for a goal or a transitory step milestone in your process. So if that makes sense, they all started as a working group, not all. Some of them started as a working group, and they got the support of the CoLab from digital presence, from mentoring, from tools, skills, whatever they need to do to form a circle where more structure was created with the agreements, how we'll be together, which not saying the working group didn't have, but this is more formal. Also, a responsibility of the circle is to have representation at the general circle meetings, at the CoLab, the next step forums, or any forums if it wasn't next steps in the future. but the forum representation of a circle is something that they are signing up for, just to keep the ecosystem to learn from itself. Does that make sense, Abhishek? Like, I've added more flavor to what circles and how they emerge. Yes, working groups do have presence on the CoLab, but they manage their own. It's like self-governing, self-organizing groups, and then um, the circles have more guidance, more structure about accountabilities and all of those things.
I think we'll get into the definitions a bit later, because that also can be quite confusing. But okay, suffice to say, at the moment, circles are more long-term and don't have a expiry date. So they do ongoing work, like the welcome gardening is evergreen, so is the digital circle and other circles. Whereas a working group might still be unsure whether they want to go ahead and be a more evergreen, or as opposed to a project which meets a deadline, which has a start and end, and that's it. That's not to say that a project cannot become a working group and a working group cannot become a circle. And it's also the other way around. They can go backwards and forwards in their states according to the energy that's in the room. And so our job as onboarders is that to be aware of what circles are currently ongoing. So, for example, I was able to tell you in this call that the communication circle is still incubating. I was able to tell you the funding circle is going through a transition. I'm going to later on in the training, I'm going to tell you how to find this information out. So don't be too stressed about it. Like, oh no, I have to go look for. No, we will tell you where to find this information so that you are informed, and that when you're talking to people who you're onboarding, you're not giving incorrect information. As to the definitions, we'll get into more detail about this when we talk about the user guides. This is a place where that's definitely more documented in detail. And if you're interested in creating the creation of circles and so on, the user guide is also a good place to start. Okay, one final circle to go. I'm just also aware of the time because I want to have enough time at the end to take a couple of questions and maybe to take some feedback before the next training session. Last circle is actually two circles I have left. So the general circle, Joe mentioned it briefly. The general circle is a place not to make decisions. General circle does not make decisions. It's made of representatives of the other circles, and it's open to any CoLab member who wants to attend as an observer, and is open to working groups if they feel like they have something to share or want to contribute into the meeting. So it's basically an open public meeting for CoLab members, where it's requiring the circles to report back to the central place so that the community can see each other, the ecosystem can see itself. So in that meeting, we take notes, and the notes are also publicly available. If you go to the General Circle channel, you'll find the link to the meeting notes, and you'll also find usually the invite for the next meeting. And I would suggest, as a volunteer onboarder, to try and make it to at least one meeting so that you get a flavor of what that is like, how to find the notes, because this is an excellent place to keep on top of what's happening in the CoLab. Again, General Circle doesn't make decisions. We'll talk more about the governance at the next call, so don't worry about that. We'll cover it in more details, but it gives that visibility. The last circle is the comms and engagement circle. It's only just starting the incubation. Right now, it's a project. It had a beginning and end with the Next Steps project, which is the Next Steps project will finish at the end of this year. However, the plan is to keep it as a circle, which means now those people who are involved in the project are working on the vision, mission, and aims of the circle. What will the circle be doing after the project finishes? Whether we will be continuing our external communications. So communications and engagement, the domain is external communications. How does the world see the CoLab? Through the website, through our social media, LinkedIn and YouTube. And also how to engage with other organizations that are outside of the CoLab, that being fiscal hosts, maybe other permaculture association, maybe funders, other people who are external, basically, and how the world sees us. So the idea is that hopefully we can continue this work also after the project is finished. It is a circle that right now is not existent and cannot be joined because it's not existent yet. It is in incubation, and therefore the members are the current members are the consent engagement circle members, project members, which is Hans, Kate, Charlie, myself, and we're recruiting a communication strategist this year. So 5 people there. But anyway, as the time goes on, there will be announcements and there will be a new page on the website outlining who is in this circle, what is the vision, and so on. 9 minutes to go. I think I stopped sharing my screen so I can see you better. How's that?
Amy, I just wanted to say sorry for throwing in wrench in your process.
It's fine.
But I just felt called to share that. I hope you covered all that you wanted to cover today.
I think we covered most of it. There's still a lot. I would really invite you to explore the website, have a look at all the resources we have available, because this is the kind of information new people are interested in, right? That they want to explore. And often what I find is that people go to on the Become a Member page, scroll right to the middle, right to the bottom, fill in the form and come in. They don't stop to read the whole page. At the beginning it tells them, please read these documents and explore the project, but often people don't do that. So reminding people to go back to the website and really explore. And they might tell you, for example, oh, I'm only here for the funding opportunities database. For this you don't need to be a member. For example, maybe membership doesn't make sense for someone, right? We want people here who really want to be here and who want to be in the spirit of collaboration and want to participate. So knowing where to find the information and having a good handle on the website is really important. Abhishek, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you again. Just like when you mentioned right now that people who are just interested in funding, that they don't need to be a member.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they going to be like? I mean, it just like clash with my other thing when we were talking earlier. You said like, I mean, everybody who need to be accessible to this space need to like sign in as a CoLab member and to take like a onboarding, like which is mandatory for everyone, and then we have like access to the funding channel.
Correct. Okay, so the funding opportunities database is freely accessible from our website without coming onto the CoLab Slack. And so when you are onboarding someone and during the onboarding call, let's say you're onboarding Joe and Joe tells you, I'm only here for the funding opportunities. And then you would say, the CoLab is not a funder. It's an excellent space for collaborating and finding opportunities with other people, working with other people, maybe joining some working groups, sharing about your project, making connections, but it's not a funder. If you would like to look for funding, you can go on our website and have a look under funding circle. I think that's what's there. And under funding circle, you can click on the database and have a look at the information there. If you find that you still want to interact further, get to know more people, maybe other projects in your area, which you could team up with or find more help, then absolutely membership is for you and you're in the right place, right? So we want to encourage people to engage not at a superficial level only. I'm not here to only extract something. I'm here to exchange, interact, and so on. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Sort of like, again, like what pops into my mind is something like the Emergent Festival.
Yes.
So I mean, that was like a kind of a funding space, right, where we were actually like giving small seeds to projects. But is that like then an internal space only for CoLab members and not people who are looking for external funding?
Correct. That's correct. And there is an expectation that the people not only join for the Emergent Festival, but they're joining as members because they want to be here longer term. The seed funding, which is really very little when you think about it, because £1,000 is not a huge amount of money. That's to keep to promote engagement within the community. And this is what we like to see, right? We want to grow our membership. And this is why, for example, in the Emergent Festival, we give the voting rights to the most active members, the members of the circles, the members of the groups that are already going. It was those people who decided who gets funding, because we want to reward engagement in the community. And people who are applying from people could not apply from outside of the CoLab. They had to go through the onboarding and so on. It was only for CoLab members. Joe.
I just wanted to bring back the case study that we've seen in the last few years. Permaculture in Africa was first emerging from the Emergent Festival.
Mm-hmm.
A group was formed, things were done, and then they decided, yes, we work well together, and they became a working group. Did other types of, I mean, I call them working group, even if it was a transitory space, and then became a circle.
Mm-hmm.
So Emergent Festival for us is, yes, it's a funded space, but it's funded from the grant that CoLab gets. It's not a external funding. It was something that we wanted to do for the community and to increase collaboration. And that's where the seed money came from. So if you weren't a member, you couldn't have been part of the Emergent Festival. Hence, you needed to be to take opportunity into being more collaborative. Again, the focus being on collaborative community.
Exactly that. Okay, 3 minutes. Let's do a round of checkout. What's your takeaway from today? Very briefly. I can start and pass it on, maybe if that's. I feel very good about today. I think it went much better than our first training session, and I'm very happy to see you again, Abhishek. I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful to Joe also for coming into the space. And my takeaway is gratitude. Thank you. That's me, and I pass it on to Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Amy. I feel more in place today with this session. And yeah, some things like the kind of circles that were introduced from the permaculture flower on the Perma Earth website now gives me like a better idea of like how things are working and how these branches are like diversified on the CoLab. And yeah, so for me, like it was a more like a informative session, and yeah, I really would like to clear more things like in the oncoming sessions that we have. Thank you.
For me, a part of, I was always afraid to be an onboarder. You've seen my journey over the last 3 years. I didn't sign up very enthusiastically to be a welcomer because I always knew that there were pieces of CoLab that I did not know, that I did not have an intro into. And just listening to you today, and maybe it's the place that I'm in with the CoLab and my journey with the CoLab over the years, that it just felt like, oh, I can contribute. Like I know some stuff about CoLab. So it gave me that little bit of courage, if you would want to call it, like say, okay, I know what happens in CoLab now. Not every detail, right? But enough to know where to go and what to find. So I'm reveling and basking in that knowledge of like, okay, I used to that fear is gone a little bit. Abhishek, I will also say that we have that YouTube channel where we are producing videos. If you ever need entertainment, I would definitely um, go see about that there, and also check out, if you are in Slack, so check out the Canvas links. There's much more homework you can do if you are ever interested. That's what I do when I'm hanging out by the huddles. But yeah, thanks, Emmy. And again, sorry for throwing wrench in your process. Like, I know I went into deep detail, but it was good. For me, it was good.
It's also part of the training to know where to introduce different concepts, because in the onboarding call there's only 1 hour and there's only so much we can go into. And I will show you a little bit later, I think in the last session, then how we program the onboarding call so that we don't overwhelm or confuse people. But that was very useful. Thank you and goodbye.
Hey, I have one question. So, since
Yes.
I missed the first session, do you think I'm all caught up and I can be on the right now
Yes.
for the rest of the
Yeah,
sessions?
I
Okay,
think so. I think you're fine.
awesome. Nice meeting you, Abhishek. See you more.
See you at the next
Thank you,
one.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Okay, I'm gonna hang up.